All right. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning to those of you on the West Coast. I am your host, Brandon Choi, also co creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And thank you so much for joining wherever you're watching from. If you had a chance to check out the title there, you know that we have, a terrific guest on tap for you guys and quite the topic to talk about. So I'm looking forward to diving in. Um, if you saw the title there, or if you saw the title that popped up for you, um, this is regarding the doc known only as Mom and Dad's Nipple Factory. And if you saw the background there, quite the background that I had there. Never thought in my wildest dreams I would have a background like that for to promote a film, but it's still a terrific story. And to talk about this film, we do have its filmmaker, none other than Justin Johnson, aka Justin Superstar. So let me bring him on now. What's going on, sir? How are you?
I'm good. I'm just coming to you from beautiful Milwaukee, Wisconsin here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, just to start off first, how are you doing? Just to check in, how are things?
Things are good. I mean, this tonight is going to be the culmination of 8 years of work on this film. And I've never seen it in a room with more than like 9 or 10 people. And then we're going to be playing at a theater with like 1,000 seats. So it's going to be a little bit intense, and I'm sure I'll be emotional. But this, like you said, the title for this film is a grabber, and I'm excited to see how people react to it. I know I'll be crying, I'm sure. So hopefully we get some other ones.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, just to start off, can you talk a bit about getting the story, off the ground and getting the film made? Because it is a tad personal, for you in terms of not just your upbringing, but also even with your family. Maybe it might have been, aspects of it that you didn't really, you were kind of hesitant to share. So, can talk a bit about that, whether it was either from you or either from your parents of wanting to open the door, so to speak, to this business that they have.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, it was a literal door in the house I grew up in that held the secrets of the nipple factory. But yeah, it's a very personal story. It's my parents' love story is really the core of it, and that was something where it took me a few years to figure out: is this about their business? Is this about their love story? That kind of thing. And I can give a little more background on the synopsis as well, if you'd
Yes,
like. But
go ahead.
great. So, yeah, I grew up in a really conservative Christian family in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I'm the oldest of five kids. We grew up really poor. My parents made a combined income of like $12,000 a year. And so we were always like, my dad was always very scrappy and kind of inventing these little DIY solutions to just make ends meet for our family. And he's super introverted, and my mom is super extroverted. They're like complete opposites. And after my mom had breast cancer and had to have a unilateral mastectomy and reconstruction for just one of her breasts, my dad really saw how incomplete she felt, because certainly 15 years ago when this happened, there just weren't a lot of options for women to have a nipple replacement done. There were like tattoos, but they're two dimensional, and they were sticker kind of things, but they wouldn't match the original, your original breast. So my like very conservative, shy, nerdy dad, who probably never said the word nipple to us growing up, ended up taking over my sister's old bedroom in the house we grew up in, and he turned it into this nipple laboratory where he was learning how to mold the nipple. He was learning how to like color match, and he just spent months like making the woman of his dreams, my mom, this perfect replacement so she could look in the mirror and feel complete again and not think of the trauma of the cancer.
Absolutely, yeah.
And they showed it to their plastic surgeon, and he said, there's nothing else like this for women. Like, you need to offer this to other people. And so it wasn't the first little business my parents had started. They had collaborated on this all
And I
throughout our
do,
childhood.
I
And
do actually. I was going to say, do want to get into that because it's funny you were talking about, how the factory, came together, so to speak, and just talking about. It's funny. I don't know if anyone has brought this up to you, but uh, your dad being a Tony Stark of sorts before there really was a Tony Stark. So and how he commented on it of him being a tinkerer and really trying to problem solve in a many ways. So can you also comment on that, because as we get towards the tail end, I do want to talk a bit about those quote unquote opposing forces, so to speak, of your, as you said, your dad, who is way more he's more introverted than your mom is, and way more chill, and your mom is more of a free spirit, and how those opposing forces, not just in, as you said, in their relationship, in their marriage, but also in their business, worked to their benefit of how they were able to make those elements work, from
Yeah, God, I wish my
qualities
dad
that they
was
both
chill.
bring.
My dad is like, he's very quiet, and I don't know. I feel very jealous of people who've had the experience of being able to have like a
Well,
beer with their
stoic,
parents.
stoic. That's
He's
the, I guess, the more
stoic is
appropriate
perfect.
stoic.
Yeah, my dad has had one beer in his entire life, and I guess he didn't like it. So it's like he's very like, in a lot of ways, like this tightly wound little ball of stress, and he's always just thinking of the worst case scenario. Any situation he'll think of, well, then this bad thing could happen. So in some ways, like that attitude, which could come across as kind of negative, in his mind
Works
he's like
for, yeah.
preparing for the worst, right? And so I'm sure with the cancer journey, like my mom, who, like you said, super happy go lucky, it's not like the glass is half full, it's like the glass is overflowing and it's always everything's wonderful. And my dad is the opposite. But really, those two point counterpoint, my mom makes the perfect customer service person for their
Yeah.
business. So she's
Yes.
talking to the client. She calls them her client friends. She just loves them. And my dad, like, that would be his worst nightmare, to have to talk to to talk to anyone, but just like strangers, about something that is intimate and personal. He's more than happy to sit in his nipple laboratory, nipple factory, and just figure out the next innovation in terms of making these products. And it's not, and for them, really, it's like, I think they made like $10,000 last year. This isn't like my dad's not driving around in a BMW with like Nipple King custom plates on it, right? Like, this is
Right,
a,
right, right.
this for them, they describe it as more of a ministry than a business. It is technically a business. They are selling these things, but they're selling them for very very cheap, because they are very frugal themselves. And I think for them, and this is why for me the film really comes back to the love story. For them, it really is just a very unique and special way for them to spend their golden years together and collaborate on something. A lot of the times you hear, oh, someone works for 50 years and then they retire and then they're bored, and then maybe they pass away in a couple of years, because you kind of lose some of that like driving meaning you have in your life when you have work to do. And for them, I just think it's an extension of their love story, that they can make this work as total opposites. And the fact, like, you couldn't invent a better job for them to have together than this, because it takes the best of both of them and just like makes it work.
Absolutely. And in diving in further about those opposing forces, so to speak, you brought in a lot of hilarious memories about how your dad was in fact a tinkerer, and how a lot of those things came together in terms of like a lot of the tools that he made growing up. And one that immediately comes to mind is the media timer.
The media timer. I'm almost regretful to get this concept out in the world. I think this may be the most successful parental. I mean, everyone's on their phones now, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, that was a thing where, and it goes even deeper than in the film. So as a very passive person, and as the dad of five kids, my dad did not want to be the parent who comes down and yells and says, "Kids, you got to get off the TV. You've got 15 minutes." He didn't want that kind of confrontation. So instead of that, he decided to invent this thing, which we dubbed the media timer. And it essentially was taking the wire from, and again, this is the 90s. We're not on our phones. We don't even have cell phones. Like, we barely have the internet. Um, it was literally stripping the wire to the TV, putting it behind like a locked plastic case, like a thermostat case with a little
Oh, it was real
key.
clever. It was really clever. Yeah.
It's pretty diabolical, honestly.
Yeah.
And and then a little bathroom timer like you have for a bathroom fan. You set it for 45 minutes and then it dings and the fan turns off. In this case, it was hardwired to shut off the TV. So he could go, he could set it for an hour, he could take a nap and know that after an hour, it's when that timer goes off, it's like literally unplugging the TV. And so who's there like it's not dad turning it, it's not him turning it off, it's his invention. So for us kids it was super frustrating. And what it goes even, and we don't talk about this in the film, but he had a custom coded, because my dad's an engineer kind of hacker type,
Sure. Yeah.
he had
Yeah.
a custom coded computer system where we would be given media time. We would log in when we were watching something or using computer and log out when we were done. And so if we like vacuumed the house, we would earn an hour of media time. And so he used that actually as punishment. Like if we were talking back to him, he would be like, Justin, that's 20 minutes. And he'd go log into our account and deduct 20 minutes of media time. He was like the
Wow.
original like crypto bro,
Wow.
right? Because this is a currency that he controls, doesn't cost him anything. And it was like this unbelievable innovation, and just like one of many examples
Oh
of
no. I
him
mean,
just
it
like, you know, yeah.
a whole bunch in there. I mean, I'm picturing, the media timer. I'm picturing, you had the one moment, which I was on the floor laughing. Is the present? I think it was a present of wood. I think in one example, and then
Yes.
the other, tinkering examples like with the audio. I think your siblings, designated as like an audio version of Craigslist of
Yeah, there
and
was lots of little
so many
businesses that
different
they
things.
started.
So
And I
it
think
was
for
quite
dad,
fascinating.
exactly. And for dad as well, people will say, "Oh, is this like an advertisement for the business?" And like my dad doesn't want this to be a popular business. And the real thing for my parents is that they've always really considered this type of prosthetic more of like a bridge to a better solution. They've never been like, oh, we're the best thing and that's it. Because we're getting into an age now where they're 3D printing nipples, they're doing
Yeah,
skin grafting. Like they know that they're looking forward to the time when their product is made irrelevant due to technology. And so again, for them, this is just really a way of working together, collaborating, and they've made over 5,000 nipples now for women around the world, and that is a powerful impact that certainly for my dad was one that he really, I don't think really acknowledged the importance of. He's kind of was bullied a lot as a kid, and his self confidence was kind of low, and so a part of this film as well was to show him, hey, what you've done really matters, and we love you, and people care about you, and that's a big element as well.
absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, no, and like it's and I'll be a little revealing for myself as well, which is why it was so hilarious. As particularly as I said, the wood example is
Right, my brother getting the gift of wood
wood is
wrapped in newspaper was
yeah,
very, again, very
because
poor upbringing.
no, I get it because like, parents didn't have, little share time. My parents didn't have tons of resources, but in terms of being creative of trying to still, still provide, some for a family. I have an incident I'll share really quick and then we'll hop back in, which reminded me of that, which is why I was initially it was funny, but then it brought me back to that moment that at the time as a kid it wasn't funny. Is I was really big into having jerseys, and jerseys, sports jerseys. I wanted an NBA jersey, a specific one. I won't
I was at the
which
Bucks
one.
game last night
Yeah, a
with the Middleton
specific
jersey, so I
one,
know.
and I didn't have. Those jerseys are expensive. Like at the time, this is backtracking, talking about the '90s. Jerseys were expensive, and so I had full expectation that I was going to end up having that jersey. The next morning, and come to find out the next morning because my parent told me, "Oh yeah, I got it." They got me what is it, a muscle shirt or what have you, or undershirt, and they markered in the player's name and markered in the number on the shirt, and I wore it, you know, because we had like a, you know, I guess a Halloween type of event back at school, and you know, I wore it and I was like bawling, like I was so upset, like, but it was fun. I can look back on it now because it's hilarious because you know the effort, creativity is what it is. You know, you work with what you have, but it still brought me back to that, which you know at the time, of course, as a kid, you don't find it, you know, that as hilarious, but looking back as an adult, it's hilarious.
Well, you
um
got to tell me what player, what team.
I want to say it was Orlando Magic, and I want to say at the time it was Shaquille O'Neal.
Okay, I was going to be Penny or Shaq. It was going to be one of
Yeah,
the two.
no,
Okay.
because the jerseys were awesome. Like the Orlando Magic jerseys, like the color scheme, all of that were awesome. So that's why. Um,
But
but
it also shows like your parents are they're doing something that took them honestly more effort than just buying a jersey, right? And I think
exactly,
that's kind of where
exactly.
just money is like, I'm going to use money and get this thing. Like, even though it was sad for you as a kid, that shows like real care, right?
Yeah,
And I think
yeah, of
even
course.
like it's like a handmade card versus one you just buy at the
Exactly.
supermarket, whatever, right?
Exactly. So, but switching gears a second, and you know, you had commented or was touched on in the film about you know, how you had that religious upbringing and how that religious upbringing, you know, shaped who you are and you know your family. But the other thing that I want to comment on is how, if we are going to get religious, you know, and spiritual, so to speak, just that idea of how a tragedy can, or not even a tragedy, because it was, you know, you guys were, your parents were able to make something with it, is transforming something that could have been tragic into a calling of sorts, and how they were able to kind of turn that lemon into lemonade, so to speak, of what they were able to do for, you know, a lot of people who were, you know, dealing with the same issue of feeling whole, of, you know, and making these nipples. So, you know, could you talk, you know, share a little bit about that and just that idea?
That's so true. And I find even in my own life that a lot of things that could be just on the surface considered a negative or bad, there are typically positive consequences that come from it. And it's something that is really special because a lot of the times when you encounter something, you're not the first person to deal with whatever that negative thing is, right? And so there's the kind of easy route to be like, oh, woe is me, I hate this thing, whatever. But the fact that my parents really went to more of like a problem solving type of a place, like, hey, like, sure the options aren't great. Let's not settle. I think that's it as well. Let's not settle for something that is subpar and isn't like right, because again, like, my dad did very well for himself. My mom is like awesome and super outgoing, and like she could have gone with more of a traditional type of guy, right? But my dad is like a very quiet kind of special mind, and she really took the time to understand him and get to know him. So I think it was for both of them. My mom being open to, hey, let's figure this out together, and my dad really being thorough. And like, I think a really important part of what they've done as well is he didn't just make one nipple for my mom and that was it. Like, when they looked at the overall market that was available for women, like especially for women of color, it's like you got a bunch of pink nipples out there and this and that, and that's like the kind of general thing. Like, I was very proud of my parents and my dad for saying, hey, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it for everybody. And that was another thing which I was really impressed by. So taking that tragedy, and it could have just been a solve for people like my mom, but it's something where they have all these different color options, like, and there were a lot of women who were suffering from this who already didn't have a lot of options, and then you come down to even less when you're looking at some of these prosthetics. And so that was a really powerful part of this story. And I think that there also are, of course, men that have breast cancer. And I didn't wasn't able to find any specific stories, but I've heard that there could be people who are going who are transgender who are using these. So it is something where it is like extremely simple and honestly kind of shocking that there's something as like a big medical thing as breast cancer. Like, why did my little shy dad in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, have to figure this out, right? And I think it's because it's a cosmetic thing for a lot for women. The cancer's gone, like whatever, and it really just shines a light on how unfortunately women can get just the short end of things when it comes to this type of cosmetic thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And and on to wrap up a little bit, and actually before get to that, are you able to tilt up your camera just a little bit because it look
There you go. Yeah.
there we go, cool. For in terms of coming full circle, and this is talking about basically what we had at the top of it being a personal story outside of the relationship that you have, or say the relationship that you show with your parents and how those opposites attract, so to speak. You also comment and share, personally for you, how there was, kind of a break of sorts, as you were growing up into an adult of, that relationship that you had with your parents, and then having it, come full circle in that way. And I found it fascinating in that, I don't know if it was, perhaps unbeknownst to you, of the very things that I feel like kind of sparked that break, so to speak, and brought you back are qualities that both of your parents have, and that
Hmm.
those same qualities that both of your parents have, that you actually have, is not only what drove you away initially, but also brought you back. Just that idea of, like, with your father, of him bringing that, or encouraging that component of being a filmmaker, and provide giving you that camera, and uh you being more of a having that free spirit type of quality, of kind of feeling inhibited with how strict he was at the time, with those anecdotes that you gave of him censoring a lot of things for you guys
Yeah.
kids, and how that brought you back, because not only did you have that quality of um, being into filmmaking, but also having that free spirit quality that sent you away for a while, but brought you back too in that same way. So can you talk a bit about that, of how, like, a lot of those qualities that probably were, like I said, but unbeknownst to you, that you have received from both of your parents, um, not only drove you away, but brought you back, and brought you back to now doing this documentary.
Absolutely. I think I feel very lucky where I got a really good blend of both of my parents. Like, I love the problem solving part, like dad, and I just love people, just like mom does. So I I think when you're growing up, you really look at your parents as these just godlike figures, right? They're not human beings. They're these entities which control you and tell you what to do. And for mom, it was like always nagging me about go to church, do this kind of stuff. And then dad was just like very quiet and kind of a neutral force. Um, but it really was the act of getting to know them better as people that helped me just like understand, like, hey, they're really special and I want to be around, and I want to be like, now I live one of the hardest things to do in this film was adding myself in as like a storyline. That was very difficult, but as I've shown people, other people that I've grown up with, they've said they really resonate with the story of that kind of religious journey growing up in that kind of conservative. And my parents and I are very different. They, we vote for different people, we believe in different things and all that. But I think in this time where it is very divisive, like there's a lot of stuff that's tearing families apart, and like we just need to realize that that's just window dressing. And like it's important to have that. It's important to be able to engage with even people that you disagree with, and to be able to keep that family bond. And I think that's something that's really important and special about this film. Our family really does get along genuinely very well. My wife says it's a little bit weird. She's like, your family is so normal, it's weird. We're normal and we're weird. But yeah, like really getting to know them as people is what brought me from living in LA, living in New York, back to the Midwest in Minneapolis. And now I can drive in an hour and a half and have lunch with my dad and come home. And that's something where those little moments are going to be things that matter way more than like going to some cool restaurant, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Justin, thank you, so much for squeezing in some time to talk about your doc, mom and dad's nipple factory. Can you tell folks, where they can find you?
Yeah, so nipplefactoryfilm.com, and we are at Nip Factory Film on most every social, so you can find us there as well.
All right, outstanding, outstanding. So there you guys have it. Again, I want to thank Justin Johnson for talking about the selection that actually will be played, and I want to comment on that too. Will be played at the Milwaukee Film Fest. Thank you so much. I'm your host Brandon Choi, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there, and see you soon. Bye.